frustration in this session somehow. And I wonder why. Why you think so?
I don't know. Maybe you can tell me.
So I have been very passionate about this topic, and we did the first TechHR in 2014, and in that first TechHR we had a track on women in digital, and it's my privilege to welcome Jennifer, and many of you heard her keynote speech this morning, and you have been a business leader yourself, you have been a coach, you have been a mentor, you're an entrepreneur, and I would love to invite you to help us frame the problem. When we're talking about women at work, and now post the pandemic, I think we have a great opportunity because a lot of things are getting rewritten. So how will you help us frame the problem? If you had to frame the problem, how will you may frame it?
Oh, wow, that's a big question. Well, I would say it's not a problem for women at work. There are challenges and opportunities. I guess that's the way I approach things. The world is evolving, as you have said, and I think more and more people are understanding that women contribute at a great level throughout the world, whether that's at home or at work. And the workplace, I think, is beginning to see that, and women are beginning to outnumber men in the workplace. So to hold them back is a problem. And I think the leading organizations have realized that it's time for us to really be focusing on developing all of our people equally and ensuring that we have levity in the ranks of women and men.
Yeah. And this week, actually, I came across an interesting example, and some of you will resonate with it. While I think organizations will talk about efforts to bring equity and to bring equality, there's still a reality that, you know, do women get paid the same? Do women get seen in the same way? And I came across this example of this entrepreneur who said that when I was younger, I had gone to my HR in this case and said that, you know, I want to get paid the same as my peers. She got to know that, you know, I get paid this much, same work, I think I should get paid. And she asked for a 30%, 40% increment, I don't know, whatever it was from her opinion. And we in HR went to her and said, no, that's not possible, and then we will only give you whatever, 20% or whatever was the case. And then she finally, after 2 months, left and built her own organization and actually started competing with this organization. She was reflecting, and it's a personal story, it's a real story, saying that because I was not treated fairly, my organization actually created a competitor in the market when I only wanted to be treated fairly. So you think that's still happening?
Absolutely. Is it happening everywhere? No. But are women still treated not equitably in some organizations? Yes. And I think that's where we as HR leaders really have a role to play in looking at, because, you know, in that situation, maybe she knew how much her peers made, maybe she didn't. But we know the pay across the organization, and so when we see inequities as HR leaders, it's upon us to craft a plan to create equity. It doesn't necessarily mean probably changing everyone's salary overnight. I realize there are budget constraints, there are a lot of constraints there, but the goal should be pay equity for people doing similar work. And it's also equity for people who have opportunity in the organization. There are studies out there that show that at least in the US, I know I've seen the data that in terms of the leadership pipeline, women and underrepresented groups tend to stagnate in the middle. And when they've looked further at the data, it's because they are not getting access to mentors, to coaches, to opportunities. So again, as leaders and as HR people leaders in the organization, we need to make sure that we're pulling people into those opportunities, because we see from research that women often don't raise their hands unless they feel like they are 100% qualified, where men will say, I can do it, regardless of their qualifications. And so we need to try to right the inequities by pulling people into the pipeline, giving them same access to opportunities so that they can move forward.
Wonderful, intentionally. Yes. Wonderful. So I'm going to come to the audience for questions as well. And you started sharing what are some of the things we can do as HR professionals. And I'd love to, if you could invite us to think through what are some of the solutions. Maybe as women ourselves in this room, what will be your word of advice for all of us? As men, And I think men have to be activists on this, because we really need the men to help us create that environment where everyone is inclusive. So what will be your advice to women? What will be your advice to men? And what, if you could maybe re-emphasize the advice you want to give to HR? And you give us a little bit of a hint already, but
Sure.
in these three
For the
ways.
women in the room and listening, I think it is up to you to raise your hand to seek out the opportunities. I did an interview with someone on their podcast a couple of years ago. I remember it was about women in leadership, et cetera, and she was kind of reflecting back on my history and my experience. And I said, in my first job as an HR leader, I was the only woman on the leadership team, and I was the youngest person in the company.
So you were unique in all possible ways.
But I didn't realize that was a problem, and so I didn't allow anyone to treat me that way. Probably because I was naive.
Yeah.
But I just approached my job as this is my job, and I have something to say, and you need to listen.
Yeah.
So, And then in my second job, I was the youngest manager and the only woman on the leadership team, and the first woman promoted to the executive team. So I think I kind of just cruised through those experiences, not really paying attention to maybe being treated differently.
Yeah.
I don't know that approach works for everyone, but I do think I was helped by the fact that I never saw something that I couldn't do.
Yeah.
And so I put my name in the hat for things.
Yeah.
I volunteered to take over big projects. I asked, to have the opportunities that maybe someone else would have sat in the room and waited for someone to give them.
Yeah.
So I think as women, we need to step up
Yeah.
and put ourselves out there more and seek those opportunities. For the men in the room, as I said, the data shows that women are not getting access to mentors and coaches. Certainly there's an opportunity for you to mentor and coach talented people in your organization, women and men, but make sure that if you're doing that if you have 4 or 5 people that you're mentoring in the organization, take a look at those people and say, oh, I'm mentoring 5 men. I need to make sure that I'm adding in some women into my mix, because it will help me as well, because I'll see different perspectives.
Yeah.
And then finally, from an HR perspective, I think, again, we have to look at our pay programs. We have to look at our promotion opportunities. We have to insist that we are considering not necessarily equal numbers of men or women, but representative numbers of men and women to our workforce to ensure that we're giving opportunities. We know that women, minorities, underrepresented groups, they want to see people like them in leadership to believe that it's a possibility.
Yeah.
So again, I always tell people it's a good exercise if you have a picture of a group of people, for example, your leadership team or your executive team, take a look at that picture.
Yeah.
Do they all look the same? Because if they're all men, for example, then the women in your organization are looking at that leadership team and saying, that's not a place for me.
Yeah.
So you need to work very hard, I think, to add some equity to that group.
Yeah. Thank you, Jennifer, for that. And I have a confession, if I may. And I looked at this picture of People Matters when we started People Matters in 2009. And somehow one day I look at that picture and I saw mostly women. And I thought, there's a problem. And I have been a very strong proponent of women, but that was not the reason why I had so many women. The reason why I had so many women is because when I interview a woman, I just feel I can connect. I just feel she gets it. I just feel there is something in her. And I started to feel a lot more empathy for other CEOs when I used to interview them and say, but look at your picture and they're only men. And suddenly I realized that we are humans and we tend to relate to people, and that's like a very hidden bias that we don't realize until we saw that picture. And that's the message I was also showing to the world, saying that you want to be at People Matters, or you're a man, or there's no place for you here. So imagine, when we look at ourselves as leaders, we do have those biases. So that's my confession, and it's a journey for me to realize that it's easy.
I think it takes opportunities like that where your eyes are opened before you get it. For example, in my situation, the last job where I was the vice president of HR was a playing card manufacturing company, largest playing card manufacturer in the world, the United States Playing Card Company. And on my team, my director of recruiting was an African-American woman who had been with the company for 28 years. And we sometimes made custom decks of cards. I mean, if you're playing with playing cards, it's likely that they're made at the United States Playing Card Company. But sometimes we would make cards that had pictures, et cetera. And our art department had made a decision to do a deck of cards to honor our military veterans. And so our art department members had gone out and asked different people in the company if they had a relative who had served in the military to bring in a picture of them so that they could put them on the deck of cards.
Wow, how lovely.
And I remember the day the deck was printed, I was walking through the printing department, and the cards come out on one sheet of paper, and they're punched out eventually into 52. And I grabbed a deck of the new military playing card deck, and I took it to the HR department, and I laid it out on the table, and I was admiring it. You know, there were black and white pictures from World War I, and it was very interesting. And everyone from HR came and started looking at it, and my director of recruiting walked over, and she looked at the deck, and within like 2 seconds, she said, "I guess there were no black people in the war." And it became crystal clear to me that everyone in our art department was white.
Yeah.
They had gone to people like
Who
them.
they knew.
They had not, consciously done that. They
Yeah.
just went to people in the company that they knew, and they didn't think about making it a diverse deck.
Yeah.
So that's where I've learned and I see it now a lot of times if I'm on like an influencer list or something like that, and they put the pictures of all of us up on the internet, and we're all white. I am like, or sometimes, all men, et cetera. And I'm like, nobody looked at that and saw something that we should keep our eyes open for in every area.
Absolutely, wonderful. And I'm going to come for questions, but before I do that, any questions for Jennifer, any burning dilemmas? We have 2 hands up, 3 and 4. If we can have the mics, I'm going to just kind of give it over to you. If you can just introduce yourself. You keep your hand up so then we can find you. If we can get a mic to, go ahead.
Hello, everyone.
Yes.
So, Jennifer.
Can we have your name, please?
Yeah, my name is Poonam.
Poonam, go ahead, Poonam.
So, the question that I had in mind, do you think that just less opportunities in the workplace can be mentors or whatever the things that you are talking about is not just the only reason, but women as in themselves are less on ambition to take it forward in their life because the kind of society that we come from, because that we are not the primary source of bread earners. So we are most of the time second. Do you think that the less on ambition as a mindset itself is there, because of which we are not able to reach at the leadership? Because as a representation increases, the number of women reduces. The story everywhere.
How much of baggage we have, huh?
Well, plus,
Isn't it?
one of the speakers...
It's a beautiful question, Poonam.
Yes,
Very
I
nice.
think it's a great point. One of the speakers mentioned this morning that women have been working from home and at home during the pandemic. So not every woman wants to be in leadership. I understand that. And some may not, to your point, believe that it's possible for them. So I think, again, we have to, as leaders, look at, are we finding ways to understand what the women in our workforce are going through? Are they overloaded in their personal lives and their professional lives? And so taking on additional responsibility is not an option for them. Are there benefits that we can offer to all of our employees? Because there are some men that also work at home. How can we make sure that we're trying to facilitate ways, again, to ease the ones that do have that ambition into the pipeline and give them opportunities to grow? But also at the same time understanding, again, for both men and women, not everyone has a desire to grow into a leadership role.
Wonderful. I love you mentioned men and women, because in many of cases is also men also want to be whole humans, and want to get out of that stereotype that they are the main bread owners. Why so? And we started to see that in India slowly, of more men choosing to take a step back and say, well, you're earning more, you love your work, you're ambitious, I will stay back. And it's amazing to see, and I've been in India for 18 years. I don't think I could have seen that 18 years ago. And during COVID, we've seen men are actually enjoying working at home and realize that I like that. I like that balance. I like to pick up the kids from the bus. I like to go downstairs in the playground. And I mean, that's just claiming back that whole humanness of, living the life you want to design for yourself. So thank you for saying woman and men in your answer all the time. Yes, go ahead. We can have a mic for... Yes. Yeah, go ahead, please.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Yeah. My name is Mahima,
Yes,
And
Magda.
it's a pleasure talking to both of you today.
Thank you.
My question is for both of you, Esther and Jennifer. While you were growing up in your career ladder, you must have seen a few obstacles which were unique in your journey. So would like to know some of them and how did you deal with them? Thank you.
Beautiful. Thank you. Jennifer, you want to start? So when Jennifer was sharing her story, I was just so relating to it. Because for me, personally, the work I've done has always been very important. So I will go even one step more. I never even saw that I was the only woman or I was the only non-Indian or I was the only... I was just always so passionate about the impact that I can create that, you know, all the obstacles were obstacles, but I never saw them as an obstacle because I'm a woman. There have been multiple obstacles, but I never thought that, that is because I'm a woman. It's like, okay, that's one obstacle. Chalo, let's overcome. So I never thought it was because I'm treated differently. Maybe it was the case. Maybe I'm very fortunate that I'm a little oblivious about these things. I'm very focused on the outcome, and some of you know me, I am a little bit of a force of nature. Nothing will stop me. So I don't even see it if it's there because I'm a woman. I won't see it.
I love that. That's great. I think, again, you have to understand yourself. If this is something that you truly want, there will be obstacles. Again, there are obstacles for men as well. And I think that's kind of been my attitude as well. I'm going to pursue this, and if you put obstacles in my way, I will find a way around them. I try to live off of the quality of my work, and I also was always one to volunteer for opportunities where I might be able to get recognized or to be able to move ahead in the company. There certainly have been situations in my career, again, now when people ask me to look back, I didn't think about it at the time, but I remember specifically I was in my 20s and I was pregnant. The CEO of my company really valued me in the work that I did for the company, and we had a new quality initiative coming in. So I was in HR, and this was a quality initiative, and he shocked everyone in the leadership team meeting where he said he wanted me to lead the quality initiative. Now the quality manager was like going, what? Wow. But then everyone, remember I was the only woman on the leadership team, all of my peers then argued that I couldn't do it because I was pregnant. And I was so angry. Yeah. Now, ultimately, we worked it out, but you know, that never crossed my mind that me being a female or being pregnant would prevent me from doing that. It did my peers, and so it took some education for both of us. I was very glad that my boss was the one that recommended me for it, so it told me that I was doing the things that I need to be doing. So if it's something that you want, there will be challenges, there will be barriers put in front of you. Pursue your goals with ambition, and if you work in an organization or for a leader who constantly puts obstacles in your way, hopefully you can find an opportunity elsewhere, because at some point there are some people you will not change. And don't let your life or your career be held back because you allowed them to do that.
Thank you. Thanks, Jennifer. Can I add just one thing? Very quickly, and I look, and this is Shirzad Shamin's work from, he's a Harvard professor, and he talks about the gift of obstacles or problems or whatever, and all of us have problems. But he turns it as it's a gift, and he gives you 3 insights, that every challenge has a gift, and he classifies these gifts into 3. One is the gift of muscle, like it makes you stronger. Probably in that beautiful example you shared, it made you stronger and more determined. So either some challenge will make you stronger, or it will give you the gift of knowledge, which means it will let you know something about yourself that you didn't know, or it will let you know something about something that you didn't know, right? Or the gift of inspiration. It may inspire you to, you know, maybe help more and more women like you've done as a coach. It may inspire you to later in your career say, I want to dedicate my life, as Jennifer did, create a community like HR Disrupt. It will inspire you to give back. So if you see that obstacles in your life as an opportunity to either tap into any of these 3 gifts, then actually obstacles are awesome. You need obstacles, otherwise, and Ranveer is going to talk about it today. I'm going to ask him this question. And then you see life very differently. All right, over to you.
Thank you, Esther.
Okay, when we clap, clap. Huh?
Yeah.
There we are. Good, thank you. Go ahead.
All right, so I see more women here than men, and happy to be amongst the minority.
Thank you so much.
Because
You're
I am a minority at home with
As
three
well.
girls to manage, right? My wife
Three girls
and
to manage. Okay.
3 girls to manage. My journey in the field of DEI started in 2016. December 10, 2015, I became a father of a girl. And she happens to be a Chennai flood child, because I was stuck there for 7 days without food, water, or whatever, right? And the family back home was wondering whether I'm dead or alive. Anyways, coming back. So when this journey started, I studied what my organization was doing in terms of diversity, hiring, and gender equality, and the ratio in the organization. After that, it took me about 3 years to come to a point where I made the ratio 50-50, and I'll tell you the numbers that I hired, 6,000 plus year on year, right? Then in 2019, the company recognized me, awarded me, and did a lot of things. Then I wanted to kind of make it a practice, and next 2 years, I consistently went on to deliver similar kind of numbers. 2021, I thought, let me do something different. Last year, I went on to hire 25 transgender resources, 25 people from the LGBTQ community. And there is a podcast about it. My video is there, and it happened when it was just 10. And I told them that, I will take it to 25, at least quarter century, because back then I started thinking of moving out, and I have now joined another organization just a month ago. Today I want to understand from both of you, right? Esther, you and I, we know each other for 7 years, right? I happened to attend all her conferences and diligently. So what I want to understand from both of you is that what else I should be doing, right? Equal pay, equity, balance in terms of ratio, hiring from other communities. I've done all of those. This is something which people generally talk about. Yeah. There are certain things which we do not know, right? And I would consider myself to be a self-learner plus a lifelong learner who also learns from others. So tell me if there is anything else that I should be doing which is going to become my goal in the next coming few years. Thank you.
Thank you so much for your question. Jennifer.
I would say now is your time to share with your peers, to help them come to the same level that you've been able to achieve.
Yeah.
Share your success, speak at conferences, events, coach other leaders, mentor people who are your peers in other companies to help them see how they can accomplish the same level of results.
Thank you.
Do you want to share something?
No, I just wanted to say that, thank you for this
Yeah.
opportunity. Had I not asked this question, I wouldn't have been able to share.
Correct.
So I've shared. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Wonderful. So we're going to take this. You want to mention something, Preeti?
Yeah. No,
Okay.
I have a problem that I
problem.
need help.
Okay, let's
so
go. Let's
our
go.
company, it's
That's
very
our problem.
unique.
It's a gift.
It's a gift,
Huh.
yes.
Tell
It's a
her.
gift, a
What's the
challenge for
gift?
me to work on. So our senior leadership is maximum women, more than 60%, okay? But they are in Sweden and Greece
Okay.
and Canada, okay? From manager downwards, they are all in India.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, there's only one team leader who is a woman.
Yeah.
And I'm trying to get more and more people in leadership. We're trying to do a lot of things like, have these forums where they can help, we can share. But there is something that is stopping these women to go to the leadership levels. What can we do to, I know there is an environment that needs to be created, but I don't know how and what environment I should create. So
Wow.
that they take that role and, take that leap.
Beautiful.
They're ready to go to quality specialist or a trainer role, but not a leader role.
Yeah, beautiful.
So, can you
Jenny?
help?
That's a big challenge. You said problem, gift. I say challenge. I think it's a two-pronged approach, probably talking to the women in your organization, as many you can. You can do surveys, but the more you can have conversations as to what their goals are. If you have a whole team of women who don't aspire to be in leadership, it's probably not likely, but
No, we're talking to them. Their
Yes.
problem is we have night shifts.
okay.
So they don't want to do that night shifts and, certain things because of family responsibilities and all. They don't want to take up this extra responsibility.
See, so there may be some cultural barriers there that are preventing them from doing that. So either finding ways to make it feasible for them, might be something like offering childcare. I don't know if that's an option in this country, but what are some ways that you could help them overcome the barriers that they are seeing? And then I think the other approach is from your leadership in the company, what training, what indoctrination do they need so that they become better advocates for women to coach, mentor, encourage, and recommend them for leadership roles. So it sounds like you have some of the challenges that they're facing, so now it's a leadership issue of how do we solve this so that we can make it possible for them, because it's a real issue that they have childcare and home needs, and if third shift or night shift is the next step into leadership, then how are we going to either help solve that or maybe even change the pathway?
Yeah, wonderful. So we have to close this session, but before we do that, I'd love to ask you a question, Jennifer, my last question, and the topic and theme of this year is rethink what's possible. So how do you rethink what's possible for yourself?
How do I what?
How do you rethink what's possible? What is your mantra or your way of rethinking what's possible for yourself?
I think I have to rethink what's possible every day. As someone who has two businesses that I run as a one-person business. I have a business partner in the second one, but he's a silent partner, so he just supports me. He's very good at supporting. But in terms of rethinking, there's no better example than 2020. You know, my business, what I love to do, what I feel like my gift is to be at events like this, speaking, teaching, meeting people, helping people to see new ways of thinking and growing. And in March of 2020, I was actually supposed to come to People Matters in April of that year. And it was the first conference that I reached out to y'all, and y'all, that's an American Southern thing, to your team in probably early March and said, I don't think I should do this. And then, of course, it was canceled. But within the first 3 weeks of March 2020, all of my speaking engagements for the year went to zero. And in my other business, Disrupt HR, if people have events in local communities. So all of those, I think we had like 60 events around the world that were scheduled, and within a month, they were all canceled. And so I went from, I was going to have one of the best years of my career. I was going to India, I was going to Barbados, I was going to New Zealand, I was going, to several places in the US. So I love to travel too. To nothing. And so I had to rethink, in the beginning we were thinking this is gonna last 2 weeks, 3 weeks.
1 month.
And then it became, I've got to rethink how to do well, first I had to do some soul searching. Was the traveling, was the meeting people what was important to me, or was it the message? And it is the message. I want people to be better leaders, to have more impact, for HR leaders in particular to understand the influence and impact that they have in organizations and step into that. And I could do that virtually. Wasn't as much fun. But I think that's an example of when there are challenges before me, I think I and most people, you take a step back. What is important here? With Disrupt HR, we had people who were saying they wanted to do the events virtually. My partner and I met and said the reason why we created the Disrupt HR events was for people to come together, and for people who are even bad speakers or who've never spoken before to be able to speak on a stage and share their idea. And I didn't see that happening. I was Zoom fatigued within like 2 weeks of the pandemic starting. And the last thing I wanted to see was somebody sitting in the floor in their bedroom giving a Disrupt HR talk. So we had to go back to, what is our purpose? Why are we here? Do we need to pause? And I needed to pause. I'm going, have to refigure out my life. And then how can I restart? Because sitting and wallowing or staying in a problem is not an option. So it's really about, okay, what's the next right step?
Awesome.
And just do that.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. Let's give Jennifer a big, big round of applause. Thank you so much for being with us.